Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. I'm Blake Harrison and joining me as ever is Stu Whiffin. Stu, how you doing, mate?
I'm all good.
Joining us are two fantastic men that we've wanted to have on the show for a long time. Jack, you've been on the show a couple of times. Rich, it's your first time. Jack and Richard Shaw, how are you both doing?
All good, boys. All good.
All good. Pleased to be making my debut.
Yeah. Well, it is your debut, as you say, Rich. So I think we should give the first question to you. And just, we wanted to know how your love of combat sports and MMA got started.
It's a funny one. I've always had an interest in it. I played football in the early part of my, when I was a youngster, from like being a kid, teenager, right through to the age of 28, 29. I was avid footballer, training regular, but I was also working in the pubs and club scenes in the local valleys. So I used to do a little bit of training. There was a guy called Reese Long, who was a judo black belt, and a guy called Steve Eamon, who was a karate black belt. I used to drop in on them sessions a couple of times a week, and I'd done that, on and off for about 10 years. But then I bumped into an old friend of mine down the sports centre one day. We were both training down there. He asked me if I wanted to grapple, and he absolutely handed me my ass. And that was my first introduction to jiu-jitsu. And that would have been around about, 2001, 2000. And it's just grown from there. I became addicted to it. I gave up football and invested my time into learning jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. And it's just grown from there, guys. And I've become a little bit of an MMA geek, as they say. Now it's all I live and breathe.
But what was the scene like back then in 2001, Rich? You said that you was doing BJJ and kickboxing. Was MMA?
Yeah.
What was the scene like in Wales at that point? Because, just from my knowledge of 2001, it was still a relatively niche sport, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was no scene. There was an old pro House of Pain, I think it was called. It was like the first MMA event. Used to run those in Swansea. I think John Phillips appeared on one of the early ones. Sure, Jimmy Warhead was on there. But it was the grappling strike from up in Gloucester, which was run by a guy called Rossi Macaro. A local fella called Heathgate took that over, and grappling strike Wales. But there was no real big scene. A lot of it was like fighting on mats with no headshots in leisure centres. And then if you were lucky enough to get on a grappling strike show or one of the shows at the time, it tended to be in a boxing ring. There wasn't many events doing it with a cage. And when I say the old boxing ring, they were old boxing rings, no padding underneath the canvas. It was straight down onto the play. But it was very, very raw, very, very underground, I suppose. Not many people knew anything about it, But they were good times, and it's incredible to see how far the sport has come. Like 2023 compared to 2003 is night and day. It's not even close, But it's been a long old 2 decades, haven't it? You know what I mean? But I think we're getting there. We're not quite there yet, but we are getting there. But back then it was mental. It was like Wild West, St. John's Ambulance doing medicals. You turn up and your opponent to be 5 kilograms overweight, but we'll still do it. You have your 200 quid and £3 ticket deal if you were lucky. I'm bollocking the kids all the time in our gym. They don't know how lucky they are. Do you know what I mean? The scene today is night and day compared to those times back in the early 2000s.
So
were you fighting as? Oh, sorry, go on, Stu.
Just our sort of spit and stardust that the scene was back then. And at that point, you think, right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I want to get my boy Jack involved in this.
Yeah, listen, he got me involved because he started going to a kickboxing club, and then I drifted over and started doing jiu-jitsu at the same club after training with the doorman for so many years. So you can blame him for getting me involved. But honestly, nothing would have made. I encouraged him. I need to tell you this. I encouraged him to play football, play rugby. I'd have rather than being a ballet dancer, anything. Just, it's difficult when he's around these type of boys, and the team that we had at the time. He just fell in love. And I never once have I had to make him go training. Do you know what I mean? He's always been off his own back. But he's very fortunate that he's competing in a different era to what I was.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose this is a question for both of you then, but I'll start with you, Rich. How difficult is it, the lines that must sometimes blur between coach fighter and father and son? There must be times where those things cross over, surely.
Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, I mean, I don't enjoy watching him do the weight cuts. It broke my heart when he lost to Ricky Simon. It's not a natural. It's not a natural mix being a coach to an MMA fight and also being the father. I've said this in plenty of interviews, and I watched on the Joe Kazagi documentary with they talk to a psychologist on there, and every strain of a father is to look after their child, and to send them out, to go and fight is quite a vulnerable position for a father to be in. And I don't enjoy it. And I'll tell you this: I don't enjoy fight. I enjoy nothing about the experience until the fight is over. That fight week is horrific for me. My stress is up, and I am getting better at it. I'm managing my nerves a lot better. I think Jack will be the first to say that on when it comes to, we sit down and we're off. There's no one more composed in the arena than myself. But that's a fact that I've got to be professional. Switch the coach's cap on. But no, I don't enjoy it. It's difficult at the end of the day. It's not a natural. It's not a natural dynamic, is it? Watching your son go out there and have a fight.
And how do you feel, Jack, about that kind of those blurring lines between coach fighter and father and son? Do you feel the same as your dad? Do you find parts of that difficult, or is it easier for you?
No, I think it's a lot more difficult for him than it is for me, because there's been, I think my first fight is 17, so there was 17 years of his life where he kind of just didn't have to deal with all that. It was just the dad role. And then when I started fighting, he had to mix the two. Whereas for me, every fight I've ever had, or every competition, or at least 95, 99% of them, he's been in the corner, or he's been there at the mat side or the ring side. So for me, it would be weird not to have him there. Do you know what I mean? Well, I wouldn't fight if he wasn't there. I would have to have him there to fight. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. So for me, it's second nature, and it's part of the process is having him there. But I think for him, obviously, although I'm a bloke now, he probably still remembers me or looks at me sometimes as the little kid growing up. So that's probably why it's so hard for him. I don't like to see the stress it puts on him sometimes. We're waiting to walk out at the O2 and he's running off, and I can hear him kecking and coughing with nerves. But so I do wear, like, I don't like to see him like that. And but at the end of the day, unfortunately, it is what it is. It's kind of, this is how it is now. And if he says to me tomorrow, I can't do it no more, I'm not going to corner you no more, then that's say, I'll hand in my my retirement papers.
See how unfair the pressure is he's putting on me, look, lads?
Yeah, it's true actually, isn't it?
He's a cruel man. He follows his mother in that department.
But just sort of talk about Jack's introduction into the sport. Like, how quickly did you see, Rich, that Jack was a legit prospect?
Generally, I think probably around the age of 15, I had an inkling that he was going to be a successful fighter, because I used to watch him in the gym. He was, he's the first to say he was carrying a little bit of puppy fat back then. You've all seen the photographs of the prom with the big pushy hair that Ariel likes to post every now and then. So, he was the most unassuming looking combat athlete you were ever going to do. But you would walk in my gym and, we won't name names, but we had established pros back in the day when he's 15, 16 turning up. And Jack would be submitting them on a regular basis. And the fact that his commitment, even at 15, he was in that gym every single night of the week. It was a way of life for him. And it's something he's always, he'd always been saying for years, I'm going to be a professional fighter and I'm going to be in the UFC. He had that mental strength. But I think around about 15, we got a lot of talented kids at the gym now, and I never read so much into it because so many come and go. But I think around about 15, when his friends started going out a little bit more, and he was still committed to training every night of the week and coming away with us. He had a good apprenticeship, really. I was fighting, he'd always come to my fights. It's Marshman, Martin McDonough, Chris Edwards. I would always take him as part of the team when we went. So it became a way of life for him, become the norm. But yeah, 15, 16, I had a good idea that, he had the potential to do something with his career.
In regards to, what you've just sort of spoke about there, it shows that the Welsh MMA scene has grown, seriously over the last sort of 10 years. Do you equate that to the kind of boom in the UFC?
With regard to Welsh fighters, or
I guess the MMA scene in general, but obviously from your perspective and your gym.
yeah, I mean, I think what we've done, we've shown the rest of the country that you don't need to be going abroad. You know, we've had Marshman, Brett and Jack all in the UFC from my gym. You had Mason Jones get the UFC, Corey McKenna based. Who else? We had Lou Long at Bellator. You know,
John
quite a few
Phillips.
successful on John Phillips in the UFC as well. And I think particularly with John Marshman, Jack, and Brett, and Lou, to some, you know, as well, they've proven that you can fight at that higher level without having to leave Wales. And you know, going back to the difference between now and 20 years ago, you know, we were learning off VHS videos. You know, we didn't even have the internet back then to be looking at. Whereas now you walk in my gym as a 16-year-old lad who's got an interest in becoming a professional fighter. You've got a load of black belts on the mat. You've got UFC veterans, Bellator veterans, Cage Warriors champions, Cage Warriors veterans. It's unreal, the level of coaching and the level of sparring partners they got now all under one roof. So, you know, we're still a million miles away from being mainstream. I mean, Jack's probably, you know, arguably the biggest name in Welsh MMA. And we can, I think you'll agree with this, we can pretty much still go about our business every day. We can go to Cardiff, Newport, and in general be left alone. You're not recognised, you know, being stopped. It's probably a lot worse when we go to London, Jack. I'd say we get stopped a lot more when we're in, you know, the cities and different places around than what we actually are in Wales at the moment.
Well, that's something that I wanted to say, and it's like we was looking into, we was researching, doing some background on the gym and that, and every single review we read was amazing, and we're just talking about how friendly the club was. And we've had Jack on twice now, we've had Oban on, we've had Brett on, and I just think you've got the balance right, that not only do you produce amazing, legit killers, you also produce some of the nicest people that we've ever met, and the nicest people that we've met in the UFC community, or the MMA community, I should say.
It's a little bit cliche, but I pride myself on developing men as much as fighters. You know, it's no good having the best fighter in the world if he's a complete asshole. He won't cut with me. I'll let him walk. I wouldn't want him around the gym, because one bad apple can, you know, spoil a crop. What we are very lucky with, Stu, is that we've got a lot of people that come and visit us liken us to like a football or a rugby team. You know, it's a real team camaraderie where you go to a lot of the other high-profile gyms in the UK and Europe where each individual is there about them as an individual. They couldn't care a shit about the rest of the people on the mat. Whereas we've got a like-minded group of individuals all trying to improve each other. You know, Brett and Jack training together has just seen those two explode with ability over the last 18 months, 2 years. Same with Oban being around the likes of Jack and Brett. Gives Oban that incentive to keep training hard, keep pushing hard, because he wants to get into the UFC. So it's a real good team spirit. But what I'm really proud of is, you know, is creating decent human beings as much as really good fighters.
Yeah, fantastic. And Jack, in terms of your dad said that he hated seeing you do the weight cuts down to 35. You've just had your debut up at 145. How have you approached that change in weight? Have you thought about the whole, you know, we've seen it with John Jones and other people that are obviously putting on a lot more weight, where they're really adding muscle, adding mass, all that stuff. Have you approached it like that? Like, I still need to cut a lot of weight and put on muscle? Or do you think, no, the most important thing for me is to cut less weight and I'll go in as a better version of myself? How have you approached it?
It's probably been somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, I've started working with Paul Reed now full time with my nutrition and my S&C. So, you know, we've got like a long-term plan to obviously turn into a better athlete, add that lean muscle, increase the strength, increase the power. But at the same time, the whole point of me moving up this weight class is so that I'm not leaving half of my ability in the sauna or in the bath. So although I don't want to be waking up weighing day and just jumping on the scale straight out of bed, I also don't want to be doing those drastic weight cuts that I was doing down at 35 either. So I'm aware that I've obviously got to be a little bit stronger and a little bit bigger to compete at the top level at 45. But also I feel like by not cutting the mass amount of weight I was cutting down at Bantam, I'll be able to perform so much better. I feel like my skills will be so much sharper because I'm having so much more time in the gym now where I can focus just on technique and sharpness and game planning, and I feel like, you know, even my sparring sessions now I can be fully filled from, like, and make sure that I can treat the sparring session like a fight in terms of not intensity, but like game planning and stuff like that. Whereas before, it was kind of like, you know, let's run in the morning and let's run in the night and just do my best to make it through the sparring session without getting injured and without, you know, without being completely useless. So it's definitely something. I don't want to be full circle and be in the same position at feather where I'm having to cut so much weight because I'm trying to be big for the weight class. I think technically I'm as good as anyone in the division. I don't look it, but I know strength-wise, especially in the grappling and the wrestling, you know, that's the first thing people say to me when they've always, they can't believe how strong I look. How strong I feel. You know, I'm not the most athletic-looking guy in the world. I'm not like chiseled with muscle, and I'm not, you know, like you look at Oban and you look at him and think, yeah, he looks like a fucking athlete. You don't necessarily always look at me, although I'm lean when it's fight week and in shape. I'm not ever, you know, I don't look like this super freak, you know, this super athletic guy. But people always tend to notice straight away at the strength and stuff. And I think it's just from doing the sport, you know, for such a long time. And I think there's a certain degree of strength comes when your technique is so good. And that's where I want to be. And I don't want to come full circle, but at the same time, I am aware, and me and Paul are working to ensure that I, you know, do get a little bit stronger. And I'm approaching things a lot more scientifically now. We're recording numbers and 1 rep maxes and power scores and even like running times and stuff like that, just so we can make sure that we've got a good base and we know when to build and when to kind of just maintain. So that's been the biggest difference, you know, that I haven't got to just solely focus on making weight now in a fight camp. I can focus on the fight.
And Richard, what's the biggest positive change you've seen with Jack moving up in weight in terms of the fight camps and the fight itself? What's the positive changes you've seen in Jack?
Just a change in attitude. I mean, he's back in. I don't think he's enjoyed the last four or five fights in the camp because it's been horrific. It's like, as he's just said, it's all about weight. This time he's had a smile on his face. He's doing 3 sessions fully energized, plenty of calories inside him. Not that monotonous 10K run 5 days a week, you know, on an empty stomach. And honestly, just watching his performance in the gym, I'd say he's probably 30-40% better than what he was at 135. And I have been telling him this for 4 fights, but I think he finally took the loss for him. And it's right what he's saying. You quickly forget about the horrific weight cuts when you're winning all the time. But what we've seen, I think, 2 weeks ago was Jack back to the Jack of old, this pressing and looking for a finish. You know, I think in some of his previous fights where he's gone a decision, he's hit that 3rd round, 2 rounds up, and not feeling 100%, and is happy to see out the round rather than risk chasing the finish. Whereas now, you know, we're a while away from them 5-round fights, but I think Jack is better suited to 5 rounds than 3 rounds. And I think at a 145, as I said, you know, you'll see a totally different animal on our hands. You know, he's always had the ability, he's always had the skill set. I think his moving up a little bit is taking that pressure off. The weight loss in the camp, as he said, he can focus on, you know, specific science and numbers around his S&C. You know, he's in the evening sessions a lot more energized. So we're seeing the best of him in the gym. As we've seen last Saturday, that's transferred into the fights now, which we probably haven't seen for 3 or 4 fights.
And another thing that I want to ask you, Jack, in regards to sort of pressure and the, you know, and putting on a great performance at the O2 the other week, you often hear fighters talk about taking their first loss and then not having that pressure of being undefeated, you know, attached to them. Did you feel any part of that applied to you?
Yeah, I did. If I'm honest, I did feel it a little bit because I felt, and again, I feel sometimes when you've got a big unbeaten streak, and you know, and it's not a knock on anyone, but that's all kind of people want to talk about fight week is, you know, if you win this, you're this many fights away from matching this record. Or at one point, I think I had, you know, on paper, I had the biggest win, or I had the best record in the UFC. I was 1 away from it, and it's all people talk is, oh, how do you feel about the pressure being undefeated? And kind of when you pick up that loss, I don't know, it feels as if, you know, this one felt like I could go out there and fight to win rather than just fight not to lose. Yeah. So like you said, sometimes you are 2 rounds up and you think, right, well, let's just cruise this last round because it's a guaranteed win. Whereas not that not that you want to lose every time, or not that you're looking to, like, you don't care if you lose, but it's kind of happened now. And if it happens again, you know what to expect. It's not like it's something out of the ordinary. That was my first loss as an MMA fighter, but in all-round competition, I think, for nearly 10 years. So it's a feeling that, you kind of forget about. And I just feel like this last one, I went out there, like I said, fight to win and fight to put him away and fight to look good when I was doing it, rather than just going out there and fighting not to lose. I felt like I'd take a couple more risks. And again, when you pick up that loss, you just kind of like, well, I tried to play it safe there and it didn't go to plan. So I might as well go out guns blazing and go for it and get all the bonuses that come with it. So yeah, I definitely feel like I had the monkey off my back a little bit. Like I could go out there and perform how I know I do in the gym, because in the gym, if you mess up, you end up in a bad spot and end up losing the round, it doesn't matter because no one's keeping score. Obviously, in a fight, all the eyes are on you, and the judges could knock you down around, or you could even lose the fight. But it just felt like a more intense sparring session. Like I go out there and flow a bit and just go for it, like I used to back in the Cage Warriors days. That's kind of what it felt like.
And Rich, in terms of that win that Jack had last week, Saturday, what's it like for you to walk out with your son and he be cheered by thousands of people at the O2? I mean, I can't imagine you thought, when the first kind of days that you were holding him in your arms, the nights where he'd come into mum and dad's bed saying, "I've had a nightmare, can I get in with you?" or anything like that. You probably weren't thinking thousands of people are going to be cheering my boy's name at the O2. How crazy is that?
It is. It's surreal, And I do have a real sense of pride. I'm proud of him, just the way he carries himself, and to walk out and watch out there. He's never changed either. We have people barking advice. Oh, he needs to be calling people out. He's a trash talk, but that's not him. He stayed true to himself, and I think that the supporters and the fans of the O2 showed that. The reaction he gets, he always gets a good positive reaction. But he's always been a fighter, boys. He was born premature. People don't know this, but he was like 3.6 pound born. He was in the intensive care unit for 4 weeks. Me and his mother had a stressful time with him. He was 6 weeks early, and it was a real stressful, couple of months. But he's turned from that 3.6 premature baby into one of the best fighters the UK has ever had. So, and like I said, it's lovely for him as well, because it's a realization of a lifetime's work for him. No one's worked harder than him. Nobody's put the more effort in and been more disciplined and more consistent, and so it's just reward for him. But yeah, both me and his mother are so proud of him.
Does it add something extra, given, because I didn't know this about Jack being premature and so small when he was born? Like, does it add something extra just thinking, Jesus, he's come through so much?
I know, yeah, it's incredible. It is. It's as I said, surreal is the only word to explain it, because it still fries my head sometimes. Like, I'm with him and we get stopped and somebody wants a photograph or an autograph, and I still find that difficult to grasp. Because to me, he's just my lad, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? But we're in some weird places like Las Vegas or New York, and randomers stopping him for a photograph. London. And I don't think I'll ever get used to it, if I'm honest. It's all a bit surreal.
Is it annoying that they're probably giving you the phone? Like, oh, take it, mate. Does that ever happen? Oh, sorry, mate. Can you take a photo of us?
Yeah, that's a regular. Can the ball fella take a photograph?
I know all about that. No, the guys are probably in between us. Can you take photos, please?
let me tell you though, right? They take a mick out in the gym. I am the worst photographer in the gym. I'm yet to take a photo that's not blurry in some way or form. So I tend to do a selfie by the time I've tried to get you. You only had to look at the end of that fight. DC had to take. He got wound up. DC took the phone off me. I couldn't work the reverse camera on it. Oh, he might be on him. Yeah, I'm the professional photographer when we're out as well.
Well, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but you mentioned the interview with and DC being in there at the end, and Jack delivered a really emotional post-fight speech talking about your cancer battle, Rich. And you clearly look, visibly moved at that moment. It was a really, emotional moment for I think anyone that was watching that.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell us a little bit about how your journey for
Yeah, of course.
recovery is going, mate?
Yeah, of course I can. I mean, I think the reason I was, to be honest, boys, I was crying before I got in the cage. It was, I think, just a sense of relief. And I say this to everybody, when Jack fights, when it's over, it's not like a sense of, oh, yes, he's won. It's like, thank God that's over with. That's how I feel. Do you know what I mean? It takes a lot out of me physically and mentally. Also, I was so proud of him because he's had a lot of contest with, and we kept it quiet. We didn't broadcast the fact that I'd had the diagnosis because, in my mind, being such a perfectionist with regard to preparation, I didn't want people asking him questions about it. I didn't want him being distracted from the fight. I didn't want, if he turned up and he had a bad performance on the night, we didn't get a win, which I fully expected him to win. But if he didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't want people saying they were using that as a prerequisite, as an excuse before the fight. So I'm quite, I'm in the public eye a lot, fellas, but I am a private person. My private life is my private life. The only people that were aware were the guys in the gym, because obviously I had to spend some time from the gym. But what happened was, last April, I found a lump in my groin. Went to the doctors and it was diagnosed as a hernia, and they told me I'd be on a waiting list for 12 months. So in July then there was a cancellation, and they asked me if I'd go down and do a pre-op for the hernia. So I go down and a specialist looks at me, does some examinations and says he doesn't think it's an hernia, so they send me for an ultrasound. The ultrasound categorically tells me that it's not a hernia. They send me for an MRI, and then the MRI results come back, and it was quite conclusive that it was cancer. So there's a lot of positives. If this had been COVID, I'd be dead. I would have been put on a 3-year waiting list for a hernia operation, and wouldn't have seen it out the other side. So I had to do a biopsy, and I'll go through the full rigmarole because it's been such a drawn-out affair. Yeah. Biopsy, I wait 3 weeks for the results. It comes back inconclusive. And then 4 weeks later, I go for an operation. So they cut me from my hip down to the bottom of my groin. When I wake up from the operation, they say it's not good news. We found more lumps. They've had to leave one lump in because it was touching my artery, and they didn't have the team there in case they didn't try and remove that in case I bled out. So then I had to wait 4 weeks then for the results. And what the doctor was hopeful was that the lumps would come back as benign. The lumps they removed, they cut deep enough that would be the end of the situation. But unfortunately, it had got into my cells and into my blood. And the only way they were going to cure it was chemotherapy and radiotherapy treatment. So that came to us right at the end of November. It was a difficult time for me, but more so for the kids and my missus more than me. I'm one of these, and Jack will tell you, I just deal with things in my stride, and like things will, what will be, will be. But I started the chemotherapy in January, and Jack will vouch for this. It was a tough 3 months, boys.
Yeah.
There were times after that treatment I would quite happily roll over and die. How I felt from the symptoms of it. But managed to get through that stage. They gave me a month off. I started radiotherapy last week. I got another 2 weeks of that. They give me a month off then for my body to repair. I go back and have what they call a PET scan, which is a 3D body imaging scan. And we have the results of whether, I'm in remission or if I got to go through the process again. But I feel fit. I feel strong. I've had a positive mindset right from the beginning. My missus hates me saying this, but I have said it. It might kill me, but it won't break me. So I'll tackle it head on. And I think we're all feeling positive. There's a good percentage of people come through this. And I just think the way I've dealt with it, I've stayed fit, stayed happy, training every day, positive mindset, won't let it grind me down. And, I'm hopeful that by June, you will have us back on with some positive news. Do you know what I mean? So we'll see. So, and like I said, what I'm most proud of is how Jack has coped with this, because make no mistake about it, he's been feeling the pressure probably a lot more than with this diagnosis yet. Still managed to do a full fight camp and come through with flying colours on like 2-2.
Yeah, it sounds like you've both dealt with this absolutely incredibly, and we're really thankful to hear that things have gone well for you. You're over the chemo side of it. A friend of mine, she was diagnosed with breast cancer a while ago, but she's gone through the chemo. She got the all clear recently, so we're really hopeful that all of that's going to happen for you as well, mate. And you do seem so fit and healthy, positive mindset, all of those things. I mean, if there's anything that you can give to anyone in terms of like, particularly men, I think, that struggle with going to the doctors, getting things checked out, have you got anything that you would say to them if they find lumps or anything like that?
I mean, you've got to go because
I'll butt in with it.
Here we go.
Because he is the most stubborn fucker you'll ever meet in your life. So I'll butt in and put my 2 pence in and say, if you have got a lump, make sure you go and get a check. Because if he had his way, like he went down to A&E the one day, he didn't know the pain. He sat there for 5 hours and was like, fuck them, I'm coming home. I ain't waiting down here no longer. And we had to send one of the boys back from the gym down to sit with him and make sure he didn't leave. So don't let your stubbornness get the better of you. Don't think it'll be all right. Just if you got any inkling at all, you don't feel right, you got a lump, just go and get a check. Because the reality of it is, if he did come home that day and the pain maybe went away or eased a little bit the next day, he'd probably be here now, still assuming that he's got an hernia and waiting for an operation for that, and then who knows what could have happened.
Listen now, boys, don't think much of it. I still would have had my result. I would have had my result the week after because I'd already had my MRI then if I'd left the hospital.
Yeah, well, you never know, do you? So don't.
What I would say, all jokes aside, you've got to go. You've got to, any lumps you can't play about, because I was convinced. I was like that between April and July. I was just training as normal. I thought it was an hernia that wasn't giving me any bother. And sometimes these operations don't come to fruition for 12 to 18 months. I think I'd have been in a lot of trouble there. But if you're unsure as well, maybe ask for a second opinion, because I didn't do that. I was only through the fact that I'd had this early call in for the hernia operation that I managed to get all the testing done. But, don't be too proud. Go there. You lose a bit of dignity. They're all looking at your private parts. And I tell you, I'm an old man who's a little bit old-fashioned, and I've lost a bit of dignity over the last 6 months with some of the checkouts I've had to go through. But it is what it is. You've got to get it done. And honestly, I can't speak highly enough of the NHS. The care and support I've had from this cancer team has been unreal. Hence why we've done the collection and the fundraising recently. And, I continue to support them as long as I got breath in my lungs for the rest of my life.
Wonderful.
Fantastic message, mate.
So, looking ahead, what's coming up for you? I know you mentioned before we press record you're having a holiday, Jack, but once that's done and dusted, what's coming up for you? What do you want next?
Yeah, to be honest, I got a lot of stuff going on. Like we mentioned, he's got a good couple of weeks of radiotherapy now. He's got to do tests and stuff like that after it to see where we stand. See if he's got. See where he stands. See if he's got to go back for more treatment, or if that's it. And then obviously I've got my son being born then at the end of July. So, I'm more than happy, to be honest, to kind of sit it out a little bit. I know they've just rumoured that the London card's happening again in July, but that's going to be a no-go for me because the baby's due 5 days after. So, I wouldn't take the risk on that one. And the last camp was stressful. There was times when he wasn't at the gym through no fault of his own, obviously, but there was times when I felt the pressure a little bit, and me and the boys had to pick it up between us. And then, if I'd had my way, I probably wouldn't have done the last fight. It was only because I think he was so sort of stuck on it. It would be good for me, and obviously that would take his mind off what's going on for me to focus on the fight. But I think now it's a case of I'll wait till the baby's born until he's had as good as had the all clear before we look at another fight. I mean, something along the lines of September, October probably would be ideal. I know it's not what people want to hear. They want me straight back in there straight away, but there's more to life than fighting sometimes, and I've got other priorities at the minute and other people that need to be put first. And I'm not never gonna. I've always stuck to my guns, and there's not many opportunities I don't think that would coax me out of that mindset at the minute.
And how is the excitement in the Shaw household waiting for a baby Shaw on the way? How are you feeling about becoming a dad? Yeah,
I can't wait. I'm it's really settled in the last couple of weeks. Like the first few weeks of camp, we found out like end of November. So, my missus is only she's a little woman anyway, so she didn't show for a long time. It almost didn't feel real, but now she's got a bump, and we're doing the house, we're doing the nursery out, and we're constantly buying stuff and appointments and scans. So it's obviously very, very real now, and we're just both excited. I know my old man and mother's excited, her parents are excited, so we can't wait. I know they say it turns your world upside down, but we're ready to fully embrace it.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite memories I remember of my wife being pregnant with my first child is when she got very big, like just a few weeks before the birth. The way the baby moves in the womb is like a scene from like a science fiction movie. It's not just a kick, like they're proper moving around in there, and there's all sorts of lumps and bumps. And we were like playing music on like a phone on top of like a bump, and all of a sudden it's just moving the phone around, and also we were like, "Whoa!" It's it's a little bit freaky to look at, but it's an amazing thing as well to see this life in there. You're like, "Whoa, what's it's going to be like?" It's great.
Well, it's mad because like I can feel the baby kicking and stuff now, and she's been feeling it for weeks, and it's as if like he's playing hardball. Every time she tells me to feel, he stops. And I put my hand in the other night, and it was a proper boot, and I was like, he's gonna be a kicker definitely. He said, there's a proper boom into my hands. I was like, oh, this is bad news from the start. If he's kicking this hard already, I hope to God he don't want to be a. I hope to God he don't want to be a fighter. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, your dad is probably. Well, I'll say like your dad is probably reminding you to throw that high kick that you didn't do in round one against Amir Khani. Well, look, guys, before we let you go, and we've loved having you both on the show, we really want to get your opinions on a few of the big fights that are coming up soon. So if you don't mind giving us your predictions, putting your pundit hats on. If we were to say Arnold Allen, Max Holloway, which way do you think that fight's going to go? And have you got any ideas of how it will play out?
I gotta go Arnold. Like he's just one of the good guys in the sport. He's always made time for me, Arnold, and I've always gone with him. I think he's such a good character and a personality, but he's not like your stereotypical. Again, I've seen people online for years, and he needs to do more of this. He needs to shit talk more. He needs to, and that's just not who he is at all. He's a down to earth, like really nice guy, Arnold. But he's got that killer in him. He's got that skill set and those natural gifts, like his power and his speed. I think he can honestly go all the way and even cause Volkanovski some problems. So
yeah,
it's no easy feat all the way. I think people are kind of falling into this illusion that because Holloway had such a tough night against Volk that he's kind of on the decline. But you watch his fight against Rodriguez and Keita, the two fights before that, he looked just as good as he ever has. And, to just speak on facts, Holloway is a better over 5 rounds, and I think this is only Arnold's second scheduled 5-rounder. So, there's always going to be that. But I just think if Arnold can catch him early and put him on the back foot and hurt him, and I think he's got all the tools to do it. I think we may even see him wrestle because he's a good wrestler, grappler, Arnold as well. And I think he edges out in that area. But it's a tough task. But I'm 100% behind him and rooting for him to do it.
Fantastic. Rich, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think Arnie as well. I think he'll make it look easier. I think he'll shock people. And as Jack said, people think about the Volkanovski fights with Max. Look what he's done to Ortega. Look what he's done to Ye. Look what he's done to Keita. He's probably on paper the second best featherweight in the division, Max. But I just think Arnold's got that ability to challenge Jack just said the title. And stopping Holloway is one thing, but I think Arnold will make it look easy over 5 rounds.
Yeah. Right, we'll go back to Jack. Conor versus Chandler.
To me, this one all depends on how Conor turns up. I think if he turns, it seems like just based online, it seems like for him to commit to do the Ultimate Fighter and kind of like isolate himself and put him, because he doesn't need the money, he doesn't need the exposure, he doesn't need the publicity. For him to sign up to do the Ultimate Fighter would lead me to believe that he's back invested in the sport and that he wants to be involved. I think if Chandler comes out like Chandler usually does and just wants a slugfest firefight, I don't think it lasts very long at all. I think Conor's too slick of a striker, too good of a counter puncher. I think anyone with that sort of come forward bombing style, I think McGregor will take him out fast. If Chandler mixes in a bit of resting early on and maybe gets him tired, which would be a smart move, then it becomes an interesting fight. But if Chandler fights him how he's fought Gaethje and how he's fought Poirier, then I think it'll be a quick night for the Mac.
Rich?
Yeah, pretty much what Jack said. I think styles make fights, and I think if Chandler comes out and wants to prove a point and keep on his feet, I think it'll be an early night.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with you, Rich, on this one, if you don't mind. We've mentioned Volkanovski. He's going to have to defend in your division now, Jack, against interim champion Yair Rodriguez. Before Yair fought Josh Emmett, I personally had very little interest in this fight. I thought Volkanovski would pretty much steamroll anyone. But Yair put on such a fantastic performance against Josh Emmett. It's made me a bit more excited about that fight. Do you think Yair's got a good chance of upsetting Volkanovski or not, Rich?
No, I don't think so, mate. I think Volk stops him. I think he stops him. I think he's that good. I mean, yeah, no, you look at his performance against Islam, who people are arguing is, one of the best in the world, pound for pound. Islam's at his back, couldn't finish him. Took him down, couldn't keep him there. I mean, I just think he's a different breed, Volk, to your average fighter. He does a lot of old school stuff. I'm a massive fan of his. I think he would probably stop him I think he's stopping within 3 rounds.
Wow. Jack, what do you think?
I think it'll be very similar to the Ortega fight. I think it'll be close for a round. I think Rodriguez will do a good job of keeping the distance early on because he's just so unorthodox. And you can see when Volk fights, he almost spends time throwing those leg kicks and that jab just to download a bit of info. And I think once he gets a read on him, I think it'll be a case of smash on the inside, take down and do damage. Because as good as Rodriguez looked, and I agree with you, I was completely the same. I had no real interest in any of those two fighting Volk until I watched how good Rodriguez looked against Josh Emmett. But I just think Volk's a different animal. He's not a wrestler who's just going to hold you down and pin you. If he gets you down and you're on your back, he's going to absolutely try and pound your face in exactly like he did to Ortega. And I just think if Ortega can't sub in with a full-on locked-in mounted guillotine and a full-in locked-in triangle, and if Islam's got your back for 4.5 or 3.5 minutes and can't do a lot with, I just don't see how he'll be competitive on the ground. And I just think Volk's how much of a little Terminator that he'll either find a way to close the distance and do damage on the inside, or he'll end up just taking him down and mauling him. So, yeah, I think Volk either by a decision or by a TKO late on.
Yeah, he's a very clever fighter as well, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He can pick up points, weaknesses in his opponent, and he'll open those up. So, yeah, I think it'll be an easy night for him.
And lastly, we'll start with you, Rich, on this one. Cejudo versus Stirling.
Ooh. I'm a little bit torn on this one. I mean, if Cejudo been busy the last couple of years, I think we'd all be saying Cejudo after the way he's out. But Sterling's a big physical lad, and he can grapple and he can wrestle. Oh, I've got to pick one on this.
Sorry to stress you out there, Rich.
Come on, lads, I'm in the middle of radiotherapy. My mind can't take all this. I'm going to go with Stirling. I think his confidence is up. The way he handled Yan in the last fight, I think he handled Yan quite comfortably. The last fight was a bit of a pointless exercise. I don't even think Dillashaw should have gone in there. I think he knew he was injured and he knew he wasn't going to get through the fight. He took the money and retired into the sunset. But yeah, I'm going to say just off his activity and his physicality, yeah, I'm going to go Stirling. That one's going to bite me on the arse. I can feel it.
Jack?
Just to be controversial, I think Cejudo. I think Aljo's so good at kind of dominating on the ground and bullying with the wrestling, but you're dealing with a different caliber wrestler. I think we're talking a Olympic gold medalist. And even now, I hear people saying that if Cejudo tried out for the Olympic team now, chances are he'd get in and pull a medal even in now after all those years. I think he'd be very hard to take down. The only way I see Aljo kind of win is if he ends up jumping to the back and getting a choke. But I just think Cejudo's so smart. I watch a lot of his breakdowns on YouTube. I've seen videos of him coaching with John Jones, training with Mighty Mouse, and I think he's that much of he's got that much of a technical brain, and he's that much of an MMA geek in a sense that there's no way Aljo gets like a mad scramble back take. I just think that he's so short. He's going to be a nightmare to get underneath. Aldo's going to have to kind of keep it long on the feet, and I think technically Cejudo's probably the better striker. I wouldn't even be surprised to see Cejudo take him down and go to work on the floor as well. So I'm going to go Henry by decision, I think, and then I think he gets what he wants, and he might even get a shot at Volkanovski for the 145 belt if he beats Stirling. He could even win that one. And it's only the fact that Volk's a little beast now that I changed my mind. But I remember saying about a year or so ago that Cejudo got a chance to win all 3 belts. But based on Volk's current run of form, I don't think that one is doable. But yeah, I think he can beat Stirling.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thanks so much for both of you coming on the show. Jack, best of luck with becoming a dad.
Yes,
I hope
mate.
everything goes well. Fantastic stuff. Rich, best of luck with becoming a granddad. And best of luck
cheers,
with
boys. Make me
recovery
feel
as well.
older than normal. We
Well,
are excited, but I do feel older.
Well, great stuff. Best of luck with everything, guys. Best of luck with your recovery as well, Rich. And
Absolutely.
yeah, we'll have you on anytime, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you so
Cheers,
much.
boys.
Cheers, guys. Nice chatting.